Hello everyone, my name is Cedric. I'm the Vice President for the Product and Infrastructure at Obsidian Labs. Today it's a pleasure for me to speak to you in this video talking about our newest addition to the IDE family, the BSC Studio, which is a graphic IDE specifically designed for BSC developers. We have integrated all necessary toolkits throughout a BSC smart contract development processes, from the code editor to the compilation all the way to the deployment and debugger, as well as the surrounding tools like the block explorer, key manager, and the API storage, so that we allow the BSC developers to develop their smart contract within our unified IDE product and became more skilled and faster when they are developing their own smart contract on BSC. Now, let's get started. The latest version of BSC Studio has been upgraded to 0.10.3. If you are not using the latest version right now, we strongly recommend you to go to our official website, www.obsidian.io, to download and update to the newest version so that you can enjoy the latest feature list. Once you manage to download and update it to the newest version of BSC Studio, reopen the application, you will figure out the still same old user interfaces that was shared by our previous version of BSC Studio. Yet newcomers might find out as well that our user interface is quite intuitive with every module perfectly aligned in the window. Firstly, let's talk about the keypair manager, where we offered a centralized keypair manager at the bottom left corner of our application. Click on the key icon on the bottom left corner to open the keypair manager, where you can create, import, manage, or delete your key pairs for the Binance Smart Chain. When you are creating or import your key pairs, the system supports both the private keys as well as the monadic. By default, it will be creating a private key for you, but you can always change by clicking the triangle drop-down menu and select from regenerate from monadic. Then the system will be creating a monadic for you. Put in the name that you desire and create. Then a key pair is created for you. Once you're created, it's also very easy to check the private key or the monadic afterwards. Click on the key icon and it will show you the content of the private key or monadic. If you have existing key pair that you want to import it into BSC Studio, it's very easy to do that by clicking on the import button, where you simply paste the content of your key pair into the column below. No matter it's a private key or monadic, the BSC Studio will be automatically detecting the content you have put and try to rephrase that of the key pair addresses listed beneath the column. Give it a name and simply click the import. It will finish the import process for you. Next, let's talk about projects. Click on the top left corner to open the project menu. When you are creating a new project, the current version of BSC Studio not only supports a variety of different templates, but also the three most common frameworks: Truffle, Hardhat, and Waffle. It's very easy for you to create any of your project based on existing templates as well as the framework. And then click Create Projects. That name has been taken. Let's try another name. And then the system will be triggering the npm client for you to initialize the project based on the selection of framework and the template you have selected. It usually will take a few minutes depending on network condition. So give it a few minutes, maybe have a coffee. Now our project has been successfully created. Now here in front of you is our code editor window for the BSC Studio. In the code editor, not only we have embedded a very cool code editor, a graphic one, but also within our code editor, we have also integrated a few very useful functions, including the linter. The linter actually links your codes in real time when you are editing your codes and show you for any warning or error it has detected. By here, it has detected 2 warnings, and if you move your mouse cursor onto the underscore, it will show you the detail. Like this. And if it detects an error, it will simply show a red cross. Same as before, if you move your cursor onto the underscore, it will show you the detail about the error it detected. All of the settings for the linter and other project settings are centralized in our project setting menu, where you can simply click on the config.json and will bring you to the window which show all the settings. The other way is to click on the project setting button, the gear shape button. It will show you all the necessary or related project settings for your projects, that including some general settings, including the direction of the main file, the smart contracts to be deployed, the framework, the npm client. But one thing worth to mention is that even though we have offered the option to change your framework, we don't recommend, or we do want to put a precaution for our developers about changing the framework directly in the project settings, because changing the framework of your existing smart contract project might be requiring some of the external or extra manual work, so that your new project is able to work with the BSC Studio for the compilation or the deployment procedures. So unless you're 100% confident about what you're doing right now, don't change the framework. Next, it will be settings on the compilers, including the compiler version of Truffle, Truffle version, the compiler version, EVM version, as well as the times, the running cycles for the optimizer. By default, it's 0. But if you need optimizer to run, just simply put a number, just like 100 means run the optimizer for 100 times. Third column would be the linter, where we have offered 2 kinds of linters, SOLINT, SOLIMIN-TH-LINT. Worth to mention, SOLIMIN-TH-LINT are the 2 names of the same linter. So pick any of your favorite, and it will work their magic. The last part will be the editor selection. You can choose the fonts, font size, and the ligatures. The greatest advantages of BSC Studio is that we have incorporated one-click deployment as well as compilation of smart contracts to the BSC Studio applications. Now simply you can click on the hammer button in the toolbar to start a build on your project. Give it a few seconds and the system will be automatically build your project on your behalf. Now the build has been successful, then we can continue to deploy the contract. For the Truffle-based projects, the build output will be located under the artifact subfolder in the another subfolder named contracts, where you can check all of your JSON files that are the output of the compiler. Then we can continue to deploy these compiled contract onto the BSC testnet. Click on the deploy button, pick this compiled contract to be deployed, and here you can put your initial supply and pick the right signer for the transaction signage. You can leave the gas limit and gas price empty because the BSC Studio has the capability to auto-estimate for you. Click on Estimate Employee. It will be estimated and fill in the form. Sometimes, in very occasional situation, that you might need to manually override the gas limit and gas price. You can simply do that by clicking onto the column and manually input your numbers, or use the reestimate button for you. Once everything is ready, click on the deploy button and your contract will be deployed to the designated networks of your choice. Give it a few seconds. Now the contract has been successfully deployed and you have already deployed your very first smart contract. The next step would be debugging the contract, where we will try to inspect the contract by calling all the functions and related queries. The simplest way to do that is to double-click on the contract addresses and it will get you to the contract inspector. The other way to get to the contract inspector is to click on the top right corner. There is a contract column. This is also the entry for the contract inspector. Where in the contract inspector you can see 3 columns. The first column would be FX. It says approve right now. It actually shows all the right functions defined in your contracts. The second would be the view functions. And the third one would be the event query. So the first, second, and third each has a list, and this list was actually generated from the contract you just deployed. And for each of the functions, the BSC Studio will be automatically generate the parameter form for you so that you can easily invoke or interact with the smart contract through the desired right functions. Now we try a simple transfer functions where we want to transfer about 10 tokens to the keypair 2 from keypair 1. Before we actually execute the transaction, let's check the balance of keypair 2 so that we know if our transaction has been successfully carried out. Now it's 0, and then we do a transfer. Click on the play button, the function will be triggered and sent over to the network for processing. The result column will be showing the return response of the function that you have specified. Here is a Boolean type of data says true, which means the function or the transaction of transfer has been successfully carried out. Now we check the balance again. Now it's 10. That proves the transaction has been successfully carried out. And for third one, you already will use it to query some events happening on the smart contract. Let's check the transfer history here. As we just did, we did about 10 token transfer from keypair 1 to keypair 2, and it was listed here. So the contract inspector gives you an intuitive way to interact with your contract. And moreover, the BSC Studio automated the whole contract or function invocation for you by generating automatically all the parameter form and also parse the return result for you. Here in the result column, you can see that we were showing the 10 value is actually integer number, where in some of the most complex contracts where we have a complex data struct instead of a single number, the BSC Studio will also be able to parse the data struct and identify each of the data field for you. For example, let me show another contract. In this contract, we have a rather complicated data struct as an input. That includes address, where you can pick from a drop-down list, or do a fuzzy search, name, numbers, and hexadecimal value, and also a boolean, where at the same time it returns also a quite complex data struct. And you may figure out BSC Studio are able to parse each of the data field and convert it or labeled it at the corresponding data type for you, including address, where simply click will bring you to the block explorer, name as a string, numbers, and also the hexadecimal value. For this hexadecimal value or the data field, it will actually detect if your hex value can be transferred or can be converted into UTF-8 strings. If it's possible to convert it to UTF-8, then it will do the conversion, and it will show as the bytes UTF-8 to indicate that this is a converted string. But you can always click on the tab label to see the raw data. And of course, if the hex value is not able to convert to the UTF-8 string, it will show you in this raw format. Last one is the boolean. So as you see, BSC Studio is very powerful in the contract inspector, while at the same time it's also very user-friendly that can help you for the high readability of your input and outputs. Next, we want to talk about Block Explorer. The Block Explorer gives you a unified view about any specified account on the networks. That includes balances, information, and transaction histories. There are several ways that can bring you here from the any other BSC Studio modules. First, just what I did, click on any specified addresses will bring you to the Block Explorer and showing the information on the address specified. Second, click on the top right corner under the Explorer tag. This will bring you to the Block Explorer. Third, click on the Explorer tag and put in a specified addresses. And it will show up the account information that you have specified. And also on the Block Explorer, we have integrated several useful tools. That includes a transfer. You can simply transfer a certain amount of tokens to any recipients that you have specified. And also faucet. You can simply use the faucet button to apply for any faucet on the Binance Smart Chain. I will be applying for my keypair 1. Put in the address and click token. And you see the faucet application has been successfully managed, and the transfer will be made in a short while. Next, I want to talk about the network manager, where on the rightmost corner, this shows the network manager, where we have pre-configured the BSC testnet as well as the BSC mainnet for your easier navigation to the Binance Smart Chain networks. Simply click on the specified network and it will bring you to the network. And at the same time, when you are connected to this network, all of the modules will be connected to the network you specified as well. For example, when you are connecting to BSC mainnet, then deploy will be made to the mainnet by default. Block Explorer will be checking the account on the mainnet, and the contract inspector will try to access the contract on the mainnet. Once you're connecting to the testnet, then all of the modules will be connecting to the testnet by default. Also worth to mention, in the newest version of BSC Studio, we have also integrated a few toolkits that might find be quite useful to the advanced developers. They are listed at the bottom next to the keypair manager icon. That includes the RPC client, which gives the low-level communication RPC clients to the actual Binance Smart Chain networks. The RPC client supports all of the RPC APIs supported by the BSC. And at the same time, same as always, we will be automatically generate all the parameter form for easier navigation and invocation to the specified RPC APIs. Click, and it will give you the raw result that was just returned by the networks. Second will be the transaction history. All of the transactions, including deployment, transfer, and other transactions, will be listed in the transaction history, so you will never be able to lose those transaction details. Simply click on any of the transaction to recall the transaction details window, where you can still check the parameters, TX, received, and ABI. And also go back to the contract if you wish to. Third would be the ABI storage. Sometimes some developers want to use the contract inspector in BSC Studio with the contracts that are not deployed through the BSC Studio. So ABI storage gives you a way to be able to call a contract that was deployed outside of the BSC Studio environment. Simply click New and import the ABI file that you want to invoke with the BSC Studio. Or the other way is like you can select from the current project. It will bring up those ABI files that has been developed previously in the BSC Studio, or that are currently opened in the BSC Studio for either navigation or addition of the ABI file. Once you have the ABI file, the BSC Studio will be able to invoke the contract of any kind on the connected network, as long as you have the addresses and the ABI file. In order to assist more BSC developers on their smart contract development, as well as to make our product more versatile, BSC Studio now not only supports desktop version, but also the web version. Click on the top right corner and select BSC Studio Web, which will bring you to the web version of BSC Studio. The web version of BSC Studio shares the same feature list as the desktop version, and additionally, it supports login with GitHub credentials. Click the top right corner and click Login. You'll be able to use your GitHub credentials to the BSC Studio. And whenever you're using BSC Studio Desktop or BSC Studio Web, you can always use the top right corner, the Report and Issue button, to send us any compliments, complaints, questions, comments, report and issue, wish list, anything that can help us with the BSC Studio. We would love to hear from the developers. So this is pretty much everything today that I want to introduce you the BSC Studio. We hope you enjoyed, and we do hope that this software is able to assist our BSC developers on their way conquering the BSC smart contract development. And as always, thank you very much for listening. And my name is Cedric. I'm from the Obsidian Labs.